In the legal world, there is a combination of forces that feed a corrupt and suffocating legal system for attorneys. Law schools, law professionals, judges, and even the firms themselves for whom you work create a system, a matrix, if you will, that is nothing like what you thought when you passed the bar exam. The purpose of this podcast is to help you escape this legal matrix, leading you out of the proverbial desert to be free of the bondage of the matrix. Hosted by Bryce D. Nyer, attorney at law with over 30 years experience in the trenches of civil and criminal litigation at the state, federal, and international levels. He's a highly accomplished and resourceful legal professional, a true master of his craft, and he's here to help you get your life back. Here's your host, Bryce D. Nyer.
All right. This is Bryce D. Nyer coming at you live from Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg for another episode of Escape the Legal Matrix. And in the house is, of course, as usual, and always, our Labrador Retriever, Drake, law firm mascot. Today is his birthday. He turned, 9 years old today. Yeah, so he's just chilling out. So we got a great topic tonight. I think you'll find it interesting. And if you don't, well, just pretend that you do. And the topic tonight is going to be called Firewall. Why am I going to talk about Firewall? I'm going to tell you why we're going to talk about Firewall. It's because we spent the last couple months upgrading all of our equipment, computers, with one of the top IT professionals in this nation who just happens to live in my city. Top notch. Great guy. And so we got all our new computers, just fantastic personalized service. And then we put in the new firewall. It's an industrial-based firewall. It's top of the line. You cannot go out and buy these things off the shelf. Does not work that way. And so it takes time to what we call to configure it against threats of actors out there, certain countries, and to prevent fraud, phishing, theft, all that. You name it. I mean, this thing is it's pretty high speed, and it takes a while to configure it with the software and everything else. And we finished up earlier today. So it got me to thinking about this concept of a firewall, because a firewall is designed to keep intruders out and to only let people in your network, so to speak, that you give permission to come in. And so when you really think about your life, my life, your life, our lives, many times there are threat actors trying to breach the firewall and to get in to attack us. This can happen in personal and professional relationships. Most often it's going to happen in a marriage, or it's going to happen in employment. Though, to me, those are the two biggest areas that I have seen my whole life, where you have this invasion, this breaching the wall because you didn't have the proper defense put in place. And then you have to ask the better question. Well, identify the threats and where are they? Who are they? How strong are they? And what are the defenses I need to have in place to minimize damage and destruction to me? And I just happened to think about today, because everything that's going on in the world today, and it's chaos and it's crazy town and a lot of delusion and a lot of deception. And so these type of behaviors, these type of things, the violence, the murder, the rape, I mean, you name it, corruption, lying, cheating, whatever it is, it breaches the firewall of truth and justice. And if you don't have the proper defenses, if you aren't equipped to go to war against these threat actors, you're going to have a problem. And this is what has happened in the legal profession. I call it the legal matrix, because that's what it is. The legal profession became infected. It became infected. It became corrupted. It is corrupt. And it has become this vindictive weapon used against people, lawfare, who live and operate in truth. It's used to silence them. You see this all across America, and you see it across the world. And within our own judicial system, the legal matrix has just infected even the law schools, because their defenses were not up. They became diluted. They became deceived because they didn't have the proper foundations, the proper armor, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually in place to stop these threat actors that breach their firewall into their personal and professional lives. And for you law students who are still, obviously still in law school or maybe brand new to this profession or whatever you do, could be real estate, I don't know, retail sales, whatever it is that you do, there's always an external threat out there. That external threat could be somebody that's jealous of you with your job position, could be a family member, it could be your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your spouse, could be one of your closest friends. It could be somebody wanting to do just somebody harm. You see that with terrorists. And so, like, for example, when we're battling against terrorism, are we allowing the Trojan horse to come in through the gates, or are we setting up the proper defenses? Sometimes the best defense is a great offense, and you have to take actions to prevent this breach of your personal and professional firewall. And I just kept thinking about that today. And even last night when I went home, I was just sitting there, I'm like, taking a good look at my own life. What anxieties do I have? What fears do I have? And what actions am I taking to combat it? And this morning, when I was getting up and I was, getting out of the shower, I was listening to this, I guess a podcast, maybe it was a video. I don't remember, but it was something about one of the speaker was like, what if you were just like weaponized and like your whole mindset was, you will not be defeated. You will do whatever it takes is necessary to succeed. And you just constantly keep that mindset. You would become unstoppable. And I thought, that's the first breach of the firewall. When somebody or some event or something breaches your firewall of faith, your firewall of clarity, your firewall of focus, and it begins to invade and weaken the foundation that you have. What can you do? Now, Christianity, it's prayer. In physical fitness, it's like not motivation, but it's discipline to get up and to do the exercises and eat the proper nutrition to be fit and trim. Let me tell you, I'm fighting that one right now. So these things, these people, these events in your life, you have to build a real firewall, not just an imaginary one, but a real one. That may be battling getting enough sleep, drawing lines in the sand of how many cases you're going to take, how many clients or customers you're going to take, shutting off your social media, turning off your cell phone, and just setting up these barriers in their firewall so you have peace of mind, peace in your spirit. And I found that for me, and I'm sharing this with you, that throughout my life, I didn't put the barriers up enough. I gave too much. I cared too much. I let too many people in. I let too many events invade my life. And there were times when I built a strong firewall, and there were times when I had weaknesses in the defenses. And let's face it, the weakest link in a chain destroys the strongest link in the chain. It's true. You could have, if you have a castle and you have a wall around the castle, but there's a portion where it's weak and they can just knock it down with a battering ram, then you have no defense. It's the same thing when I see like going into courthouses, if somebody really wants to come in and do damage, it's not going to be hard to do because there's usually only one or two people at the door. And I don't think that a lot of the places across our country, I don't think they're secure enough. It's like when you have, the school shootings and stuff like that. You've got to firewall. You've got to have outside barriers. You've got to really build a great offense and a great defense at the same time to have this firewall. I mean, I'm just giving these as examples of what I see every day. You hear about the things about people that are victims to crimes. Well, what's the firewall? To me, it's a carry conceal. Being properly trained. And some of our nutcase governors and nutcase legislators across the country, gun-free zones and stuff like that. See, that's an example. That's an example of where threat actors can get in, real threat actors in real life. Where versus some communities, they're all armed, and you just you start playing stupid games, you're going to win stupid prizes. And so in your life, you have to take the same approach. This isn't being paranoid. This is called being alert. Being alert, being ready to deal with the threats that are going to try and breach your firewall in your personal and professional life. Just like your homes, think about this. The majority of you will typically have a security system, security cameras inside and outside. Why do you do that? Because you're trying to minimize the risk of threat actors. And some of you may clearly have weapons in the house where they're nearby where you can get to them quickly in the event you have a home invasion. Why? To reduce death and damage and mayhem against threat actors. So as you go through life, especially you law students, as you head into the legal matrix, you better have the foundation solid of body, being, balance, and business. Because I'm telling you, if you don't, you're going to be destroyed. There were times in my life when I just didn't have the offense and the defense in sync, in line. And it was painful. The fallout, the damage that I did to myself, the damage that was done was horrible. It was horrible. And everybody in life is facing obstacles. They're facing pits. They're facing challenges. And some of them are really heavy. They're really, they're heavy. They're heavy. And a lot of it is because we let our defenses down. We didn't live and operate in truth. And we allowed things to breach the firewall into us mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So, just like in the realm of body, of physical fitness, you drink a case of beer a night, you're allowing alcohol to breach and to cause problems with your nutrition. In Christianity, you go out and sin, you're going to reap what you sow with your free will. In balance, when in your marriage or your relationship with your boyfriend or girlfriend, look, I'm 0 for 2 in marriages. Okay, I'm not batting 1,000. If you don't nurture it, if you don't build the defenses up to have a solid marriage, it's going to fall apart. If you're not evenly yoked, if you're not having conversations and communications and you're at each other's throats, that breaches the firewall of trust and fidelity. It does. When you get into the issue of business, like us, we put in this new firewall. I mean, it's expensive. Is it worth it? Hell yeah, it is. Of course it is. To prevent people from coming in and stealing our data or doing other stuff and hiring and paying for the best guy, because you get what you pay for. You hire a $3 an hour monkey, that's what you're going to get. So you have to ask these better questions. Where in your world are you vulnerable? What is your firewall in body, being, balance, in business? What are you doing to strengthen those firewalls in each one of those domains? Because it's a tough world out there. And quite frankly, I don't see it getting better. Now, that comes from a biblical point of view. And I know some of you may question, my views. Maybe you do, maybe you do. I don't know. But I'm not a saint, but I ain't stupid neither. And I see what's going on in the world. And it's heading toward the end. There will be temporary reprieves, but I'm telling you, it's headed toward the end. And then the interim, the issue is, what are we doing to strengthen the firewalls and the domains of body, being, balance, in business, to fight against the deception and delusion, the evil that's out there? I mean, the legal profession's got a problem. It's on life support. It really is. The legal profession is not what it should be or could be. I have watched it for year after year disintegrate into political agendas. That's what's happened. The firewall of truth and justice was breached, and it became infected with a cancer of party loyalty, agenda loyalty, delusion, and deception. The judicial system was always meant to be that last reservoir of integrity to keep the other branches and everybody else in check, but that's not what it is anymore. It's a weapon. And there are still a few, the chosen few in the legal profession, that operate and live in truth. But they're few and far between, in my opinion. Few and far between. The rest of them sold their souls, and they sold out a long ago on the bench, and the lawyers themselves that are in private practice are working for state or federal government. And hence why when I sat there in 2023 and this idea came to my head about escape the legal matrix, when I looked at everything that was wrong in my life and what I've been doing to fight and to build the firewalls to get my life back on track, and that's when it came to me 3 years ago this month in a breakout session in Wake Up Warrior, live. And it's just never left my mind. So these podcasts of Escape the Legal Matrix are not just for law students and lawyers, they're for everybody. Because it doesn't matter what you do as your profession, you're going to have to firewall yourself against the threat actors that come after you personally and professionally. So ask yourself those better questions. Where in your world are you vulnerable? Where in your world do you need to bolster the firewalls in the domains of body, being, balance, and business and ultimately lead to fulfillment? Because it's a chaotic world out there, and there are people that are seeking to do you and others harm. That's just a fact of life. That's not paranoia. That is a fact. So look up, look around, be aware of your surroundings, and be aware of whom you associate with, what you associate with, and check on yourself every day. That's what I'm doing. It's hard. It's not fun. It's not easy, but it's necessary. All right, this has been Bryce Denier. Yeah, with another episode of Escape the Legal Matrix. Again, tonight's topic, Firewall. And we were in the house with Drake, the Labrador Retriever, who has been sleeping through this whole podcast. He must be bored, or it's because he's been playing outside all day, and my staff has been giving him tons of snacks, which is making him kind of lazy, which means he's going to go for some more walks to burn some of those dog calories to keep him fit and trim and keep his firewall up in the domain of body. All right, this is Bryce Denier, and we are out of here.